Picture this. You're on your couch, popcorn in hand. Life is good. Then, out of nowhere, your brain just stops listening to you. Your face goes slack. Your legs stand up on their own. You're not deciding anything anymore. Something else is driving. And before you know it, you're walking toward the roof, ready to jump. Terrifying, right? Good news, that's not happening to you. Bad news, it's happening to millions of animals right now. In your backyard, in the pond down the street, in the forest you walked past last weekend. Parasites have been perfecting mind control for hundreds of millions of years, long before humans showed up to be creeped out by it. And every single one on this list has found its own way to reach in and grab the wheel. So grab your popcorn, carefully. Today, we're counting down nature's top 5 mind control parasites, the ones that turn ordinary animals into full-blown, real-life zombies. Stick around for a bonus round at the end. Number 5. The suicide specialist, the horsehair worm. Long, thin, brownish, like spaghetti that moves on its own. Its victim of choice? The common cricket. A cricket eats the worm's microscopic larvae without any idea it's happened. At first, nothing seems wrong. The worm just grows quietly inside the cricket's body cavity, sometimes growing longer than the cricket itself. But to reproduce, the worm needs water, and crickets are famously bad swimmers. So how does it convince a landlord terrified of water to march into a lake? It hijacks the wheel. The worm releases a cocktail of chemicals that scrambles the cricket's nervous system, making it obsessed with light. Any shiny reflection off a puddle or pond suddenly looks like the most important thing in the world. So the cricket walks straight into open water. No hesitation. The moment it hits the surface, its body ruptures, and the worm slithers out to find a mate and start the cycle again. The cricket drowns or gets snapped up by a very grateful fish. Scientists call these Gordian worms, after the legendary knot, because pulled out, they tangle into knots almost impossible to undo. Fitting for a creature whose whole strategy is making life complicated for whoever's carrying it. But parasite number 4 doesn't flood the system to hijack the wheel. It's more surgical. It doesn't touch the wheel at all. It touches the fear. Number 4. The romantic rat and Toxoplasma. Cats and rats don't get along. One whiff of cat urine sends a rat sprinting for cover. It's hardwired, bone-deep survival instinct. Except there's a single-celled parasite that rewrites the rulebook entirely, Toxoplasma gondii. It can only reproduce inside a cat's gut, nowhere else will do. So it recruits a middleman, the rat. Once inside a rat, it travels straight to the brain and sets up shop near the amygdala, the fear center. Researchers have found infected rats show a spike in dopamine near the scent of cat urine. Their instinctive terror doesn't just vanish. Some studies suggest they become drawn to the smell. The parasite isn't erasing fear. It's flipping it into curiosity. So the rat wanders closer instead of fleeing. And you can guess how that ends. The rat becomes lunch, the cat gets infected, and the parasite finally reaches the only home where it can reproduce. Quick real-world detail. Humans get infected too, usually through undercooked meat or cat litter. Estimates suggest over 1 billion people carry a dormant version right now, without knowing it. Some researchers have proposed subtle effects on human behavior, though it's still genuinely debated. You'd think losing your fear would be the worst thing a parasite could do. You'd be wrong, because our next parasite doesn't flip an emotion. It goes straight for the control panel. Number 3. The brain surgeon, jewel wasp. Cockroaches are tough, fast, practically indestructible. Yet it takes a wasp smaller than a paperclip only seconds to turn one into an obedient slave. Meet the jewel wasp, shimmering, metallic, gorgeous, terrifying. First, it stings the roach's midsection, briefly paralyzing its front legs. Then it inserts its stinger directly into the roach's head, feeling around inside the brain for one exact cluster of neurons, the escape reflex. Once it finds that precise spot, it injects venom directly there, only there. The roach can still walk fine. Its body works, but its will to run or fight just switches off, like someone flipped a circuit breaker labeled self-preservation. Then the wasp grabs the roach gently by one antenna, like a leash, and walks it, docile and cooperative, to its burrow. It lays a single egg on the roach and seals the entrance. Days later, the larva hatches and feeds on the still-living roach from the inside out, saving vital organs for last. That's a cockroach losing the wheel down to a single group of neurons. Now imagine an entire colony hijacked by something that isn't even an animal at all. Number 2. Zombie ants and Ophiocordyceps. If you've watched The Last of Us, you know Cordyceps, the fungus that turns humans into monsters. Here's the twist, it's not fiction. A real fungus, Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, does something remarkably similar to carpenter ants, and has for at least 48 million years, confirmed by fossilized bite marks on ancient leaves. Here's what blew researchers' minds. This fungus doesn't even touch the ant's brain. Instead, its threads spread through the ant's body and wrap around its muscle fibers, rewiring motor control from the outside. The brain stays completely intact and aware. It just loses the ability to give orders. Around solar noon, the infected ant abandons its trail and climbs to roughly 25 centimeters, the exact zone the fungus needs to grow. Too high or low, and it won't survive. That precision is engineering, not accident. The fungus forces the ant to clamp its jaws onto a leaf vein in what scientists call the death grip, holding until it dies. Days later, a fungal stalk erupts from its head and rains spores onto the colony below. A hopeful twist. Some colonies have evolved defenses. Healthy ants detect early infection signs and drag the infected ant away before it becomes a spore launcher. A kind of ant quarantine. You'd think a fungus that skips the brain and hijacks the muscles instead would be the strangest thing on this list. You'd be wrong. Our next parasite turns its host's entire body into a walking advertisement for its own death. Number 1. The disco snail. Last on our official list, Leucochloridium paradoxum, a flatworm that turns a garden snail into a walking, pulsing disco club. The parasite enters as larvae and migrates into the snail's eye stalks, forming a brood sac. If you were a parasite trapped inside a snail terrified of light and invisible to birds, what would you do? You'd turn your host into bait. The brood sac takes on bold red and green stripes and pulses rhythmically, mimicking a plump, juicy caterpillar, aggressive mimicry, using appearance as bait instead of camouflage. Snails are naturally light-averse, sticking to shade. But this parasite drives the snail to climb into direct sunlight, onto the most visible leaf it can find, eye stalks pulsing. A hungry bird swoops down and eats what looks like an easy meal. The snail doesn't even have to die. It regenerates a new eye stalk and gets reinfected, becoming a renewable spore factory for life. Inside the bird, the parasite reproduces, and its eggs return to the environment through droppings, starting the cycle over. That's the official top 5. 5 parasites. 5 completely different ways of stealing the wheel. And honestly, we couldn't stop there. Bonus scene. The ant on a leash, the lancet liver fluke. Meet Dicrocelium dendriticum, the lancet liver fluke. Maybe the most patient, calculated mind control job in the animal kingdom. Its goal is to get inside the gut of a grazing cow or sheep. Problem: ants don't hang around waiting to be eaten. An ant accidentally eats fluke larvae near livestock droppings. Most settle quietly in its abdomen, but one travels to the ant's brain and takes control of its jaw muscles. Here's the genius part. This parasite only takes the wheel a few hours a night, handing it back every morning. During the day, the ant forages normally. But as evening falls, the parasite forces it to climb to the top of a blade of grass and clamp its jaws shut, locked in place. If no cow eats that blade overnight, no problem. By morning the parasite releases its grip and the ant returns to normal. The same thing repeats every evening until, finally, the right animal eats the right blade at the right time. It's a nightly stakeout run through a hijacked insect, patient enough to try again every single evening until the plan works. Nature is beautiful. It really is. And somehow, it's also been running the greatest horror franchise ever made. More sequels, more twists, and a higher body count than Hollywood could ever dream of. Thankfully, these particular parasites can't control human brains. Right? Which one freaked you out the most? The suicidal cricket, the romantic rat, the brain surgeon wasp, the zombie ants, the disco snail, or the patient little fluke? Let me know in the comments. If you learned something today, or you're never going to look at a snail the same way again, leave a like, and if you want more of nature's darkest stories, subscribe and stick around. Nature has been making zombie movies for hundreds of millions of years. Hollywood is just copying them. See you in the next one.